The photographer stood in the doorway, camera in hand, confused. He took one step inside, then stopped. The living room felt tight, claustrophobic, like the walls had moved overnight. What he didn't know was that nothing structural had changed at all. Only the consequences had. If you've ever been ignored by a landlord who smiled on the phone and vanished when it mattered, hit like and subscribe, because sometimes the quietest revenge leaves the loudest impact. This story happened to my friend Nathan, early 30s, quiet guy, reliable tenant. He rented a one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city in northern Ohio. Nothing fancy. Beige walls, old carpet, radiators that clang like they were haunted. The landlord, Carl, owned several buildings around town. One of those owners who always sounded friendly but never followed through. You'd call him with a problem. "Oh, wow, yeah, that's not good," Carl would say. "Thanks for letting me know. I'll get someone on it." And then, nothing. The worst stretch came in January. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and the heat went out for a week. Then two. By week 3, Nathan was sleeping in layers. Hoodie, socks, beanie, breath visible in the mornings. He texted, he called, he emailed. Carl answered once. "So sorry, man. Winter rush. I'll prioritize it." Another week passed. No repair. No follow-up. No apology. That's when something in Nathan finally went quiet. Not anger. Not rage. Resignation. He found another place. Signed the lease. Gave notice. Only then did Carl suddenly reappear. Friendly again. Efficient now. He called and asked, "Hey, would it be alright if a photographer came by next week while you're at work? I want to list the apartment right away." Nathan paused. Every ignored message. Every cold night. Every promise that went nowhere. He said yes. But that night, standing in his living room, something occurred to him. The apartment wasn't big, but it didn't feel small either. And then the idea landed. The next evening, Nathan didn't damage anything. Didn't steal. Didn't break a rule. He simply moved things. The couch that normally hugged the wall, 8 inches forward. The armchair pulled slightly inward. The coffee table centered tighter. The side table shifted just enough to narrow the walking path. The room was technically identical, but visually, it felt wrong. Like you'd bump your knee every time you stood up. Like you'd hesitate to host friends. Like you'd constantly be squeezing past furniture. Nathan stood back and smiled for the first time in months. The next day, the photographer came. Nathan wasn't there. But later that week, curiosity got the better of him. He checked the listing. The photos were up, wide-angle lens, bright lighting, and still the apartment looked cramped. Comments started appearing. Feels tight for price. Living room looks small. Not much space to move around. A week passed, then 2, then 4. The listing stayed up. Rent reduced slightly. Still no takers. A mutual acquaintance later told Nathan that Carl was complaining about how hard it was to rent that unit. Nathan just nodded. He never told Carl, never bragged, never explained. He just let the silence do what Carl never did. Respond. The payoff wasn't confrontation. It wasn't shouting. It was watching the same neglect finally cost something. Time, money, convenience. For once, Carl had to sit with the consequences. And Nathan, he slept warm, in a better apartment, with peace. Revenge doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just shifting things slightly until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. If this story made you smile, hit like and subscribe for more real-life revenge stories where justice doesn't break rules. It bends perspective. And tell us in the comments, what's the pettiest revenge you've ever seen actually work?